So the Los Angeles Clippers have been linked to Clint Capela, and I think with this, the Clippers could benefit from getting Clint Capela off the bench. I mean, essentially, they're going to be trading for Clint Capela as a secondary big man. Obviously, on their team, they really only have Moses Brown as their backup center. So trading for a guy like Clint Capela gives them another great big body off the bench, someone that's going to be grabbing rebounds, playing the pick and roll, and playing the interior. So today we're going to talk about a potential Clint Capela trade and why the Clippers would benefit from this. So what's up? My name is JDC. If you like what you see, drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate it. And let's just get into it with Clint Capela's stats here. So looking at it over the season, he's averaging 11 points, around 12 rebounds, and around 1 assist on around 61% from the field. So he's also throwing in 1.5 blocks per game. And with this, I mean, Clint Capela, the reason I see the Clips winning from this trade is that they obviously get another big body who can grab rebounds and play the interior. He's a great interior defender. I mean, he's a guy that's going to be very lengthy, pretty hard to get around in the interior. A guy that's averaging 1.5 blocks. I mean, we saw this in previous seasons. He's been a very capable defender. The problem with Clint Capela, I mean, he's really only good for that. He's not going to be an offensive-minded guy. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be, being in the post, or he's going to be utilized in the post, which is fine. I think they really just need him for grabbing rebounds and just playing in the interior, which is basically what he's going to be doing on this team if he gets traded. Now, obviously, the Clippers, like I said, they need a backup center with Moses Brown being the backup, but he's not even getting any minutes, so with the potential Clint Capela trade, I mean, this would give the Clippers obviously more depth to what their team is right now. I mean, if you look at their team, they have a lot of good players. I mean, their depth goes really, really deep. They obviously got John Wall. They got Reggie Jackson, Kawhi Leonard, who is injured right now, but regardless, they do got PG, Robert Covington, Norman Powell, who also is a pretty great player for them off the bench. They got Zubac, they got Nicholas Batum, Brandon Boston, Amir Coffey, all these guys, Terrence Mann, Marcus Morris. I mean, you can see the depth on this team and adding a guy like Clint Capela, who is going to be probably one of their better players off the bench. I mean, looking at their bench, Norman Powell is going to be there. Luke Kennard's going to be there. Good three-point shooter right there. Reggie Jackson, John Wall, whoever decides to, come off the bench, entirely lose system, is going to be running the PG. So whoever it is, they're going to be running the pick and roll with Clint Capela a lot. And I think the pick and roll with Capela is going to be pretty great. So also, I wanted to mention this. The Clippers were mentioned to include John Wall's name in a potential Clint Capela trade. But if I'm being real with you, I mean, the Hawks are pretty unlikely to bite on a trade like that. First of all, I mean, John Wall, he's obviously going to the Hawks. He doesn't really provide them any value or any upside. He's around like 32, 33. And, they have Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. So it doesn't really make sense to bring in John Wall off the bench or even to the Hawks in general. I mean, obviously, John Wall's still a pretty good defender, pretty great player overall. He actually is having a pretty okay season for someone that's coming basically back from sitting for a whole season. But regardless, I mean, John Wall to the Hawks wouldn't really make any sense. So the Clips, I mean, I would really love this trade for the Los Angeles Clippers. They get another big body. The only downside I see to this is, first of all, I mean, Zubac versus Clint Capela in the starting five. I think both guys are pretty capable of starting in the starting five, basically for Ty Lue. The problem with that is, you can't really run both of them in the same lineup because they both can't stretch the floor at all. No offensive ability outside of, scoring in the paint. And even with Kawhi Leonard and, PG being injury prone, John Wall sitting basically from back-to-backs, I would not start these two guys in the starting lineup. It just doesn't make any sense. So one guy has to be off the bench and one guy has to start. If I'm going with my gut here, I would go Clint Capela. Obviously, I mean, I think he's the better player. I've seen him in previous seasons, essentially. I mean, he's been one of the Hawks' best players in terms of defending in the interior. And I think, the pick and roll with Trae Young, obviously a great offense right there. But at the same time, I mean, Zubac, he has chemistry with this team. I mean, he's been on this team longer. He's going to be on this team for probably years to come. I mean, looking at his age, I think Zubac is pretty young, I want to say. If you look at his age, he is around 25 years old. So he's going to be here for the long run. Clint Capela, I mean, as good as he is, he's a little bit older than Zubac, I want to say. He is around, 28. So I mean, Clint Capela does give them experience. I mean, he's been in the playoffs for a couple seasons with the Rockets and with the Atlanta Hawks. Adding him alongside to the Clippers, it would definitely help them in the long run and even in the playoffs when they need some guys to defend. But, you guys can let me know about this trade. I think I don't know. It would be pretty interesting if the Hawks and the Clippers got a deal done. Now, if I'm talking potential trade targets or potential trade pieces in a trade, I mean, Clint Capela would obviously come into mind. If they don't get Clint Capela, I mean, John Collins could also be a pretty solid trade option for this team too. Gives them a good score off the bench, a good wing off the bench that can basically score and handle the ball. But in terms of a Clint Capela trade, I would probably offer up John Wall. I mean, he's pretty replaceable with Reggie Jackson on the team, so I'd give up John Wall if the Hawks were willing to accept it, which they probably aren't. So if they aren't willing to accept John Wall, I mean, I don't know. It's very tough because this Clippers team, a lot of their pieces are pieces that are contributing to them win. That's why I won't include players like Norman Powell or Luke Kennard because I think both these guys are pretty valuable. I mean, Marcus Morris could be pretty interesting in terms of trading because he gives them some, floor spacing, some good post up, some good, obviously, mid range shooting. But regardless, I think he's going to be a guy on the Clippers that's going to be very valuable in terms of offense. They could give up Terrence Mann. I think Terrence Mann could be a pretty interesting trade target for the Atlanta Hawks off the bench. Moses Brown, Brandon Boston, I mean, these guys could probably be some other trade targets, but regardless, I mean, even Robert Covington giving them some good help defense for the Atlanta Hawks and good defense off the bench could be also pretty interesting, but he's making $12 million a year, so we'll see about that. So in terms of a Clint Capela trade, I'd be pretty surprised if the Clippers got done this trade, but you guys can let me know. I mean, anything could happen. I think the Clippers most certainly won't get Clint Capela. We'll see, because I think Capela definitely has a high trade value with what he's able to do. So that's pretty much it. That's the video. I'm out. Peace.